Good morning and welcome to our daily devotional from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn. Very glad to have you with us on this Wednesday, October the 12th, 2022, as we continue our study and look at Luke chapter 18, focusing on the first 8 verses, the parable of the persistent widow. And this morning, I'm going to focus on the parable itself. Verse 1 gives a very brief introduction, and then verse 6 has Jesus commenting immediately upon the parable. So I'm going to have us focus this morning on the parable itself, verses 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'll read those verses, offer a couple of reflections, and then close us with prayer. So this is Luke 18, 2 through 5. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor regarded man. And there was a widow in that city who kept coming to him and saying, 'Vindicate me against my adversary.' For a while he refused, but afterward he said to himself, 'Though I neither fear God nor regard man, yet because this widow bothers me, I will vindicate her, or she will wear me out by her continual coming.'" So that's the parable itself. I mentioned in the Bible study last night that I think there's a lot of humor going on here. I think that the humor comes across in the extremes. That is, the judge is described as someone who has the very opposite of what a judge is supposed to have in order to be a judge. And so the extreme characterization lends itself, I think, to the possibility that it was supposed to be funny, that there's a judge who neither feared God nor regarded man. Well, that means for all intents and purposes, he's not a judge because he doesn't have any of the characteristics required to be a judge. Then, of course, the other character, and another funny thing that happens here is that the translators, for the most part, translate the end of verse 5 by saying that she will wear me out by her continual coming. But in the Greek, there's actually a boxing term here of a hit or a slap to the face. So again, I think there's something supposed to be a little bit funny about this little widow woman is going to come and knock this judge upside the head. And he's worried about that. So I think there's a good bit of humor here. Not only that, you have the character in a very odd sort of way, essentially saying, the judge saying to himself, I neither fear God nor regard man. So he's basically says, I'm not a judge at all because I don't fear God or regard man, but this widow keeps bothering me. So I tend to think there's a strong element of humor here, and the translation might miss that a bit. And of course, there are lots of reasons why Jesus would use humor, perhaps the most important being to hold the attention and to get the attention of the audience, to try to get them to see what he's saying. Lots of things could be said about this parable. I mean, there are all kinds of references to the Old Testament and the requirements of a judge, what a judge is, the characteristics that a judge is supposed to have, and this judge doesn't have any of it. Then, of course, there's the character of the widow. Lots of things could be said here. Number one, Jesus seems in his ministry to perpetually bring forth the presence of women, whether through stories, whether through encouraging Mary to sit at his feet. Then you have the gospel writers themselves. At the end of this book, of the Gospel of Luke, you have the witness of the women at the resurrection and basically the men. Now, what's interesting is that you have a male author here recognizing that the women are being ignored. that their true witness with integrity is being absolutely ignored by the disciples, and only because they are women. So the Gospels, it's important to remember that both in Jesus' storytelling and in his interactions with women, and the accounts that the authors in the Gospels, and particularly in Luke, give, women are central in a way that is, I think, shameful for most of the history of the church, because for much of the history of the church, we have acted very much like the disciples, and that is, men and women too have ignored women and their witness and their capacity for leadership. So then the other aspect, of course, in Luke of this being a widow is that this would have been a woman who did not have any social standing, because her husband had died, or very little social standing. Her husband had died. In Jewish law, her property would have gone either to the sons or to the brothers of the man who died. And so the widow would have had to fend for herself and depend upon family relatives. And so it's assumed that this is a case of the widow trying to fend for herself. So there are all kinds of elements. Finally, I'll just say to encourage you to read the passage at the end of chapter 17, and the parable that follows, which is the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, because this parable fits between those two and really fits in the larger story of the Gospel of Luke. So I encourage you to read around these passages well. So let's close with this word of prayer. This is a prayer from a prayer book I've been reading from lately called Piercing Heaven, Prayers of the Puritans. And it's a bit of modernized version of the Puritan language from the 16 and 1700s. This is a prayer by David Clarkson. Lord, I have nothing to move you to show me mercy, nothing that would convince you to be gracious to me. All I have would only engage you against me or shut me out from mercy. If sin and unworthiness exclude a sinner from faith and mercy, I could lie down in sorrow and despair forever. But it is the glory of mercy to run freely, to flow out upon those that are most unworthy. Such am I, Lord, the unworthiest of any who ever sought faith in you, or that ever found mercy with you. But the more unworthy, the more will it be for the glory of your mercy that I not perish. The riches of your grace appear even greater by your giving me faith. Glorify your mercy on someone like me. Have mercy on me, Lord, that I not perish. Show yourself to be God. Show forth your glory by doing for me what people and angels, what heaven and earth cannot do for me. They all say while they see me perishing, if the Lord does not help you, how will we help? I have destroyed myself, but in you alone is my help. The more helpless my condition, the more will it be for your glory to help me. We hope in vain for salvation from the mountains, and in vain we expect faith from prayers, from ordinances, or from anything else. Only you can help me to faith. Help, O Lord. All other help is in vain. Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining me this morning from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and I hope that you have a very good day. Goodbye.